We want to turn to a press conference. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Richard Ross is providing an update right now on the Starbucks incident. Let's listen in.
An incident that I fully acknowledge that I played a significant role in making worse. For starters, I should have said the officers acted within the scope of the law and not that they didn't do anything wrong. Words are very important. While it is no excuse, my lack of awareness of the Starbucks business model played a role in my messaging. While this is apparently a well-known fact with Starbucks customers, not everyone is aware that people spend long hours in Starbucks and aren't necessarily expected to make a purchase. I've had multiple discussions over the last few days, and it is I shouldn't say a well-known fact, but a widespread belief that everyone knows that about Starbucks. I'm here to tell you that I did not, and it is also reasonable to believe that the officers didn't know it either. As I have spoken to a number of people who are not Starbucks customers who are not aware, I was under the belief that people went there and they spent hours and hours, but that the expectation was that they bought something first. I was not aware of that, and so that is on me. I can appreciate, in light of the Starbucks policy and how well known it is to many, why these two men were appalled when they were asked to leave. For this reason, I apologize to them. We have already completed a new policy that guides our officers on how to deal with similar situations. Previously, we did not have such a policy because it is nearly impossible to have a policy for every criminal or any other violation. But we have a policy now. And I'm not going to go into it at this point in time, but we'll be pushing that out at a later date. There are also questions regarding the 911 dispatch call and how it was different than the requests for assistance. A disturbance call, and this is 29 years for me, is one of the lowest priority calls that we have. And while I can understand why people hearing or seeing the radio dispatch difference, it is nothing that alarms police officers whatsoever. It's just a way that these calls are put out. Many of you in the press or who have scanners know that we do not operate under a 10-code system, meaning we don't use codes, we just spell out exactly what the job is. And so this would just be one example, and it's just a generic way to say that there's an issue at a particular location. One thing that is evident in this case is that from reviewing the evidence and having seen the video from Starbucks itself, that these officers who responded were in fact not at all alarmed by the fact that a disturbance call went out, because it goes out so frequently. That is evidenced by the fact that at least one of the officers is seen leaning over the back of an empty chair with his legs crossed, talking in a rather relaxed manner. They did this for approximately 10 or so minutes as they're trying to work their way through this situation. And all the while, as I indicated, they do not know at the time that this was a situation unlike most businesses where you have an expectation to make a purchase. As for the number of officers who responded, that becomes another issue. These officers, just in good faith, were trying to do everything that they could to prevent anyone from getting hurt. I understand how that could alarm people, but the intent was not to intimidate. It was actually to do something different. There's another issue that has arisen from this whole unfortunate incident, and that deals with pedestrian stops, or as some of you like to call it, stop and frisk. While we still have a lot of work to do in this area, we've done a significant amount during the Mayor Kinney's administration. Our pedestrian stops are down over 50% in the last 2 years, and that is evidenced by even the ACLU, and I think they've told you as such in the last couple of days. And if not, I'm telling you now, many of you have already heard that. In addition to which, in terms of underscoring some of the work that has been done to improve upon our relations with community and to make our city better and safer, police-involved shootings are down over 65% in the last 5 years, and they continue to go down. These are just a few things that are indicative of our efforts to do better, and we will continue to strive to do better. The issue of race in this situation is not lost on me. The optics are not lost on me. It is obvious the issue of race is indicative of a larger problem in our society, and I should not at all be the person that is a party to making anything worse relative to race relations. Shame on me if in any way that I've done that. And to anybody listening, to those involved, that is on me, and from my heart, which is pure, from the beginning even till now, I have to do better. And so I just think that as we work to make this city safer and better, we do have to acknowledge that there's still things that we have to work on. And it starts at the top, and that starts with me. And so messaging is important, and I fail miserably in this regard. I am flawed like many other folks, but that is still no excuse. We will continue to acknowledge how race plays a factor and a role in many things that we do. We will also continue to applaud the brave work of the men and women in this city, and the fact that they go about their jobs and trying to make this city a safer place. And these are things that, will require a collaborative effort. And so we will continue to do that. It is important for me to say, for some who may wonder, no one asked me to do this, no one made me do this, for reasons that I won't get into. I certainly could not be required to do it. I'll take your questions at this time.
Commissioner, you mentioned a new policy for similar situations. Are you referring to potential trespassing calls, or can you elaborate a little bit?
So in particular, I am talking about potential trespassing calls. I'm talking about a policy that, first and foremost, to be blunt, where we ensure that we get cooperation from managers or someone in authority, and that also that we don't get manipulated by any employee into extracting anyone from a business that shouldn't be.
Is that what happened here?
I don't know, but it's certainly, if there's an issue where you have a company policy that allows people to stay without purchasing, and that's the reason for your call, it begs the question, why that happened in the first place.
Would you describe it as being excessive?
Which part? No, because what happened is you have to kind of go through the numbers. It's a good question. So first, the way the call comes out and the way the officers come in, literally the first officer, the arresting officer didn't even know who the individuals were. So he wasn't looking for anybody in particular. He had to be directed there. He had two officers almost get there simultaneously with him. It's not for a while that other officers get there, and it's that prompting of the call for a supervisor that does kind of make officers' antennas go up to wonder what is going on. So while I fully appreciate and acknowledge how it looks that way, it was not designed to be that way. It is not uncommon, particularly if there are officers in the area. But I can put myself certainly in the shoes of others who don't necessarily, just like I don't know Starbucks protocol, who don't know police protocol, to understand or try to understand, what's going on and why are there this many officers here and why am I being put out in the first place. And so, again, it starts with me. It starts with me grossly misunderstanding Starbucks policy, and quite frankly, it took me a while to even get my brain around it, because I still was thinking that the process centered around a need to buy something first, and then you could hang out all day long. That is what I thought. Clearly, I was wrong, and so I can only assume that the officers thought as much as well.
When you listen to the 911 call that was released, you hear, I guess, what presumably was the female store manager say, there are two gentlemen here who refused to make a purchase or leave. How does that translate to the dispatcher saying there's a group of males causing a disturbance and trespassing? Right.
So again, as I was trying to suggest when I was speaking earlier, that is something that I understand why folks would hear that and say, well, that makes no sense to me. But that poses no alarm for us whatsoever. That is so routine, I can't begin to describe it. And again, it's very, very low on our priority calls. Disturbance is something I guarantee you, if you turned on a radio scanner right now and you scanned across this city, I'd be surprised if you don't hear it at least once in the next 10 minutes. And so I just say that again to underscore that in and of itself, as it relates to the officers and their response to the situation, really didn't mean a whole lot to them.
And is it typical for that number of officers to respond to that kind of call?
And again, this is to his question. It's not about what's typical. It's about how things unfold.
We were just listening to
And
Philadelphia
so
Police Commissioner Richard
you
Ross
could
discuss
get-
the incident at Starbucks. It, of course, has now sparked national outrage. We'll, of course, keep you updated throughout the day on his
turn to
comments.